Backyard Professor Chess videos. Several of you have asked about the idea of attacking the king and the themes of attacking chess, and Vladimir Vukovic has written a book, an entire book on this, How to Attack in Chess, the Art of Attack in Chess. And I want to give you a sample game of his that kind of gives you an indication. This is between Keres and Winter. This was in Warsaw in 1935. It was the Sicilian that was played. Keres is white. He opens with the king pawn, of course, for the Sicilian to take place. The c5 comes up. This is a very powerful, interesting game to show you the effects of how speedy and easy it can be to attack a king if you're not paying attention. He immediately pushes the e5. Now, I've seen this in the Kasparov games, the Fischer games, the Karpov games, the Bronstein games, the Alekhine games, the Capablanca games. They push against that knight, and they force that knight to move twice. This also, this pawn thrust, takes away the influence of this knight for that square and that square, because now the knight is on that square, and he can be chased off. So this is a very interesting move. And now knight c3. He has an option of exchanging the knight on c3, but Winter chooses instead to bring up and support his knight in the center with the e-push, so Keres takes that knight. Now, we already see early in the game that we're exchanging pieces, and there is already an imbalance, just that quick. It's very interesting to note this. The doubled pawns on the queen file, the better central space of white thanks to that pawn, and because of white's aggressive nature in this particular opening, he is better developed at this point. If he can maintain this pace of development, he should be able to overcome black. Black needs to pay attention to his P's and Q's, however. Notice how white immediately stabs in the center. It's always going to be a center, and now he pushes his pawn up to also fight the center. Now white continues to develop his bishop. This jumps the queen over to a5, so the queen is developed. He puts the king into check. This is often seen in a Sicilian. You want the queen to be able to come out to this direction, according to some of the game commentaries I've been reading. And now he pushes his pawn. So he has a real nice pawn chain going all the way up through the center. He's neatly dividing the chessboard. Well, this doesn't go uncontested, of course not. C is going to take the d4 pawn. Bishop comes up to d3. What a fascinating opening. Look at these pawns. 3 pawns in a row on the queen file. The pawn structure of black is utterly unique, I must confess. This is a fascinating game at this point. Now, D continues to take the c3 pawn, and Keres castles. He doesn't worry about the pawn, and now C takes the b2 pawn. And now you can see something utterly fantastic. Black has spent his energy consuming white's pawns, right? So the board is going to become fairly open, right? And white has spent his time developing his powers. White is vastly superior in development, but black has a lot of pawns, 3 pawns at this point. Well, the rook does come to b1, duh. There's no reason to give him the rook, right? But now we know there's something interesting. D now takes e5. Black has 4 of white's pawns. He's literally obliterated white's pawns. But notice the situation. While black has been pursuing material which is not always a bad thing. It's not. However, in this instance, the king is still in the center and there's no chance of castling yet. And this is dangerous. With the board wide open, with the king not castled, Keres, being the kind of chess player he was, he's going to come full out at Winter. There's no question about this. And sure enough, the knight exchanges the e5 pawn, and now he's coming after him. And bishop does d6. He finally pulls another power up to d6 to centralize a little bit and try to get his king to where he can castle. The other thing that you want to learn to recognize as you get into games that play out this way, if you get games that play out this way, is the f7 pawn is the weakest pawn. And of course, this is where the game is decided because Keres sacrifices his knight here. Knight takes f7, and now the game is for all intents and purposes, virtually over. So soon, because black spent his time pursuing material and opening up the board. Even though he has a fantastically close passed pawn, it comes to naught. Because now, of course, queen comes up to h5, check to the king. A sacrificial assault on f7 here, where the king is now, it must be, as a rule, followed up by aggressive, fast action. Now that you've got the king out in the open, you simply attack that king for all you're worth. Of course, one of the defenses is to push that g6 pawn, but that doesn't do him a bit of good because now the bishop can come up and take g6, check. You can see this game is really close to over. H takes the bishop, of course. Now Keres has an option of scrambling to take the rook if he wishes, and he does. Queen takes h8. He's got his rook. You see, he's more than made up already for the 4 or 3 pawns that he's down, hasn't he? Simply because he has so much greater power. This is a screaming attack, of course. Bishop now will come to f5. Now he's trying to pull out some power to protect as little as he can his king's side. And now, of course, rook grabs the open file, and Keres is building his mating net. Now the king cannot go past that line of demarcation. Winter is too undeveloped to pull his other rook in here to have any influence on his game, and his queen is way over here in the middle of nowhere. On the edge of nowhere, I should say. Now the bishop comes to e4, trying to block off the rook. He's got a diagonal toward the king, but his idea is, now I've got to make sure my king can escape absolutely. And the fascinating thing is, when you have such overwhelming power in an attack, you have the means to perform terrific sacrifices. And Keres does so. He simply takes the bishop with the rook. Of course. Why not? Black is way too underdeveloped, and you're going, well, I don't know if I would have gave that rook away or not, but let Keres educate us because this is so powerful. Now, queen comes to f6, and Winter resigns at this point. And the reason why is, of course, if for one such option, if king goes to e8, then the queen can follow up with queen e6 check, and the king comes over to f8, and of course, bishop h6 is checkmate. He's got him in the crosshairs between the queen and the bishop because his king side is so obliterated. So this is one theme of an attack on how to attack. Again, the theme I stress in almost all my videos because it works and because it's accurate theory, and it really, I would call it the theology of chess, is by developing all of your pieces, you have the chance to put together coordinated attacks. Winter didn't even get those two pieces into play, and all he was able to do was put his queen over here on the edge of the board. So 3 of his powers never even took place in this game, while Keres could sacrifice a knight, a rook, etc. to open up the king to get to the king because he had the superior development. That's critical to know. So that's your chess exercise for today. Happy checkmating, happy chess-ercising, happy chess playing, and I'll see you in the next video.